Welcome to Custom Homebuilders Solutions, also known as CHS, a job costing, full accounting, and profit management software designed specifically for the professional home builder. Hi everyone. In this video, I am going to talk about how to set up the backbone of a job costing program like CHS. In order to compare costs from maybe your job bids from your vendors or subcontractors or suppliers to the budget, or select for the budget, and compare to purchase orders or committed costs that you're issuing, compared to change orders, and to post actual job costs against those so that you can compare them across the board on something that you're changing daily, estimated cost and completion, and showing how much over and under you are. You need something to use for all of those so that we can compare those. And what we call that is cost code centers or cost codes master. We need to set up some things there. So I'm going to click, but first of all, I'm going to show you in the menu. You could just start typing cost codes and you'd see cost codes master setup, and you could select that and go to the same place. But I'll also show you how you can do cost codes master setup and then find cost codes master and generic items. So behind that, before we set those up, we've had some previous videos about setting up job stages and cost types, because we are going to need those when we're setting up our cost codes master. So let's click that. By the backbone, I mean that cost codes are things like framing, plumbing, roofing, top out, various cost centers for the job. And I'm going to show you how to set these various cost centers up. Cost centers are used throughout the program to compare job budget costs, purchase order costs, change order costs, and bills or actual job costs that you post to pay trades or suppliers. When you enter accounting entries, you'll be selecting a cost code. When you enter purchase orders, you'll be selecting a cost code. When you're working on a job budget, you'll be doing that by cost codes. To demonstrate that real quickly, I've already opened what we call our estimated cost at completion, that brings together all those various types of costs by cost code, just so you can get a quick feel for how those cost codes are used. There are other videos about this estimated cost at completion worksheet, but its main purpose is to, on a daily basis, it's figuring out for you what your current estimated cost at completion is. But you can see how these are various what we call cost codes down the side here that we set up, which is what this video will be about, but that it's showing how much, say for a slab contract, was the original budget. Let's go down here to framing labor, the original budget, some change order costs that we posted, so those were posted using this cost code, some purchase orders that we created and posted using this cost code, the actual costs, in other words bills we posted to pay trades or vendors, the total of those, and this one is check marked as done, so it's using the actual costs as your estimated cost at completion, versus this has a budget of $9,000, purchase orders issued of $4,300, actual costs of $8,000, and it's still using the budget number because that's the highest number over POs. If POs was higher than the budget, it would use the POs number for the estimated cost at completion. And as soon as I check mark that these actual costs are all the costs we're going to have, my estimated cost at completion changes. But the point of me showing you this screen was to show you how CHS is gathering totals from throughout the program and putting them on a line for a cost code. And so that's basically how cost codes become the backbone of a job costing system that's going to show you job variances, etc. So let's go back to the cost code setup window that I opened. First of all, when you first get CHS, there won't be any cost codes here, and you can click a button to view or load the National Association of Home Builders recommended cost codes, and if we click that, you can go ahead and do a report of those to study them, to see if they're what you're like. And the best way to do this one is to export it to a PDF. This first opens in an HTML format, which isn't as styled as the PDF. So the best one is the PDF of this, because it'll put them in 2 columns for you instead of so many pages. So you could use, the print icon on your PDF reader to print that out and study those before you decide to load them. If you decide to load them, you would click this button for load, and those would all be loaded as your cost codes. Then you can edit those, change those, delete those, add to them as needed for your own purpose. Since we already have cost codes set up, this builder that is kind enough to let us use his cost codes, we'll just leave that alone and won't load anything. If you'll notice here on this window, these are all grouped under various groups that have a number. Let's go down and look at plumbing, which is in the 3600 group. And I'd like you to notice that we have a group here called 3600 plumbing, and then we have cost codes. This is just a heading, this group. It's just a heading that you will attach cost codes to. And notice how it's 3600 and all of my cost codes start with a 36 so that they make some sense, just intuitively as to what group they're with. So the first thing you need to set up if you're setting up your own cost codes from scratch is these groups, so that then you can set up cost codes and attach them to the groups. Or if you need to add a new group, for both of those things, either set them up from scratch or starting and you need to add another group to the list. Let's take a look at this and decide. Let's just add group 200. We're just going to make up one. So you click this button for add or edit groups. And what you'll see is a list of all the groups that you have set up. And you can scroll through those and you can take a look at them all, that kind of thing. Sorry, got lost there. So you can scroll through those and see which ones you have. And let's just go ahead and add a new group, which is 200. So we'll give it a 200 code right here. Now, the numbers that you use for setting up these groups, like I mentioned before, your cost codes will sort of go with those groups. But the thing about that is you should put these, number them so that they're in an order that makes sense to you for the progress, of constructing a house, etc. Because all groups and cost codes on various reports will be first by that group, and then by the cost codes, and then by the next group, and then by the cost codes, that kind of thing. So this is numerical, so it's not text, so it will sort in the numerical order. And we're just going to call this a test group. And I recommend using all caps for the group, not for the cost codes, but just because they will be group headings on various reports. So let's submit that. Now we see that it's in our list here, but if we close this, it will, and it's refreshing, we still won't see it in our list of cost codes. Notice that we'll go here, and we don't see the 200. That's because in order for it to show up here, since this is a list of cost codes, we need to have a cost code attached to it. And I'm going to get into setting up cost codes in just a little bit, so I'm just going to make a fake one that's 201 test. And we're going to select the group that it'll be in, which will be this group. And we'll select just a stage. We're just going to, decide that, I don't know what it is. And that's why I said you need to have cost types and stages set up. And let's say this is some labor thing. And this will all be explained a little bit more later in this video. But let's go ahead and submit that cost code and then see what happens when it refreshes. See if we scroll down. Now we see that we have this test cost code and it's showing up here, but let's go ahead and delete that with the red X, and CHS is going to check whether this cost code has been used anywhere, and it hasn't, so it says okay, delete that cost code. The reason I'm deleting the cost code is because if I try to go back to add edit groups, and if I try to delete this test group, if there is any cost code attached, it won't let me. But now that I don't have any cost codes attached, I can use the red X to delete this cost group. So remember that you need to delete any cost codes, if it'll let you, that are attached to the group, and then you'd be able to delete the group. So we have done that, and you'll notice that with all these various changes I'm making, there's an audit record going on here: confirm deleted cost group, added new cost group, that kind of thing. So this is about cost group headings. And if we go here and look at the audit for the cost codes themselves, you will see I added new cost code, I confirmed deletion of the cost code, and you can see those cost codes over here. So it says who did it and what time they did it. So back to groups. I think there was, to edit them, we saw how to delete it, and to edit it, you're going to see the same kind of window that you got for adding a new one. So you would change the group, change the title if you need, that kind of thing. If you change the group, that group is going to cascade throughout the program, and everything that has that group attached to it will change to the new group cost code, or group code, a numerical group code. So let's close that, and I think that that's all. Let me make sure my notes. I think that's all I needed to say about groups. Thing I'd like to mention is to be careful not to make these cost codes as you set them up to be too detailed. Cost codes are meant to be used as cost-centered and not as detailed items. For example, let me look under building permits real quickly. Notice building permits here. I have some items set up behind it, and I don't have each of these items. See how I have city building permits, county permits, and there will be another video following this video about items and how those are used throughout the program. But instead of making your cost codes very detailed, you should set up items behind them and think of the cost code as a cost center, so that you're not trying to post bills and everything for every single permit and using different cost codes for that. If you set up your cost codes to be too detailed, the time to post payable bills, purchase orders, or change orders will increase proportionately, and you will have a giant accounting database before you know it. Cost codes that are too detailed increase the chance for errors when posting the job cost to cost codes, and you may find you can't see the forest for the trees when reviewing your job cost variances. So don't set up things like masonry ties under masonry materials, or each piece of lumber or stick. Think of these as cost centers. Our philosophy is that a builder should manage by exception and should spend time looking at the detail only if there is an over budget alert. Now notice up here I'm talking about avoid cost codes, and I have a little document about that, and in it I'm demonstrating the errors and the problems there can be with too detailed of cost codes. So you might also want to review that. Let me get back to setting up a cost code. To add a new cost code to a group, you will click the button labeled Add New Cost Code, and this window will open. Let's decide to add a cost code for septic permit to the group titled Permits and Fees. And notice that the group number will be 1000 over here, back behind here, for permits and fees, etc. And let's look this over for a second, permits and fees, and you'll see we have these various cost codes. And let's decide to use cost code 1050, because we don't have that set up, to do our septic permits. So let's put in, you would type in, and this must be a number, it cannot be alpha characters, and I'm going to call this septic permit as the title, and I'm tabbing to move to the next sections. So it wants to know what group that will be in, and I'm going to tell it that this will be in that group 1000, permits and fees. Now here's the reason I said that you need to watch the videos and set up stages, because your cost codes are going to be attached to stages and grouped by stages, and we're going to have another video about attaching all your cost codes to stages and viewing how cost codes are attached to stages. That's very handy because you can produce a job budget where you group the cost codes by stage rather than by group. And stages should be thought of as when you take bank draws, etc. In this case, when we drop down and we see the stages that we've set up, we're going to go ahead and put this in the 0 stage, pre-construction, release not started, that this builder has set up. Now, the other reason I said at the beginning of this video that you need to set up cost types first is because your new cost code is going to ask for which cost type this should be in. If I had set up a cost type maybe called fees, I might want to use that, but instead I'm just going to call this cost type other. It's not really materials to have a septic permit, and it's not really labor, so right now I'm just going to call this an other cost code. Now, the direct or indirect, you can print budget reports to get the totals of how much of the costs that you're budgeting for are for direct costs or hard costs or for indirect costs. Indirect costs are soft costs that are maybe not directly related to the construction of the thing, maybe like a sales commission, etc., or interest paying on an interim loan, but you have a cost code set up for it. You might call those indirect. It's simply up to you. Quite often for builders risk insurance, they want to know the total of what they call your hard costs, which in CHS would be your direct costs. And that's all I need to do to set up this cost code. My next video is going to be about setting up some default pricing that will automatically load when you create a new budget. But I don't want this video to get too long, so I'm going to do that in the next video. By the way, if later on you need to change this cost code, let's go ahead and submit this new cost code first of all using the submit button. And we're going to see it here in a minute in our list of permits and fees. Now, maybe you decide I wanted that cost code to be 1055. To edit this one, you click the pencil edit icon. You can open it up for edit, and I could change this. And what will happen if there's been any costs or budgets or anything posted to this cost code, that change of the cost code will cascade throughout the program and change all those records to the new cost code that I changed this to. There will also be an audit record stored if you make changes like that. Edit. The other thing is that I didn't mention is, let's go up to the building permits one, because I think I typed some notes in when I set it up. Notice that this says this is cost center for building permits. Items are attached to this cost code for things like city or county permits. So I just typed some notes in, but what I'd like you to know is that if you type notes here, a person working on a job budget, and I'll go open a job budget. I've opened the job budget list of budget jobs with budgets and jobs without budgets from the menu, and I'd like to show you that how those notes show up. Let's click on the budget amount for the Smith John job to open the job budget worksheet. And this video is not about how to do a job budget, but I just wanted to show you something. If you click on a line for one of these cost codes that we've set up to work on your budget for that line, if I click that line, you're going to see a place that says Master Defaults. And that's going to sort of take you back and show you some stuff about the cost code that was set up on the cost codes master, so that you can see various things about it, and you can see those notes right there while you're working on a budget. So that's what I wanted to show you, is that how those notes will be on over there where you can get to those and look at your basic master that you set up for building permits. So that's all I wanted to show you about that on the job budget. So we'll just close that job budget and get back to our cost codes master. By the way, things, like I said before, can be set up when they open. They'll be in tabs. Some of the stuff will be in tabs, so you can jump back and forth. So if I wanted to go, like I did, back to something I'd opened before to look at jobs budgets. So that completes this video about the basics of setting up cost codes and cost code groups, and a few notes about it. In our very next video, we are going to talk about what is going on over here about note default measure through taxpayer, which means default measure right here through the taxpayer. These columns are simply defaults to load when opening a new budget. This is not a job budget, but you can set up some master defaults that will drop in to the job budget by setting up some master pricing. And that's what we'll talk about in the very next video. Thank you for watching.